let's just go into it. Hello, everybody. With duels coming out soon, I wanted to kind of refresh, go over, talk about some of the new cards, the new heroes, the new spells being added in the game for duels. Just my thoughts about it. I'll probably have some other stuff with Shady later on down the road, but I just wanted to have my thoughts on what's likely to be happening. I'm pretty excited for duels. Like, it looks really fun, and I can't wait to like jab it with some good players. So we'll get started. We'll first talk about all of the new heroes in duos. Then we'll talk about some of the spells. Then we'll go through the list of minions. So it's a pretty big list. I'll try not to go too slow as I like to do, but we'll just try to cover all the bases. Let's get started. So first off, we have the nameless one. So this is a passive. Start the game, you copy your teammate's hero power. That does seem reasonable. You're going to really have to coordinate. A lot of interesting things about the cards being released have a lot of coordination requirements. I would say, like, you can play duels by yourself, like go in solo and get a random teammate, but it does feel like you need to be discussing in some way with your teammate, whether just through emotes or something. But voice is probably the best. But yeah, this is definitely going to be important for a hero like this. You have to know what your opponent is picking, what your opponent's strategy wants to be, based on what minion types are in, things like that. So this can be very useful. It does have 12 armor, which is pretty high in my opinion for something. You could just get a copy of a very powerful one with low base armor and have this 12 armor base. So I think that helps a lot for this just being generically good if your opponent has a good hero power. So seems strong to me. As long as you guys are coordinating and your hero power does make sense to have a second copy of. Next up, we have Madam Goya. So pass a non-golden minion. So this one, 2 gold to pass a non-golden minion. The benefit is you can pass minions in the shop. You can pass minions in your hand. So being able to just give your opponent something for 2 or give your teammate something for 2 gold, even in the shop, is pretty good. Means that you can basically buy for 1 less, or you buy for 2, they pass it for 1, right? I assume so. You can just buy anything you want, really. But is this like worth a hero power is my question. And there's a spell that basically does this for 2 gold. So you basically just have that spell. Now, is that spell good enough that you want it every single turn? I'm not sure. Maybe, right? I haven't tested it, but my guess is there's probably going to be better things you can do with your hero power. Though it does seem like not bad, but I'm not super sold on this being like a very powerful hero. Could be wrong though. I could definitely see this like this is just so broken. Free gold every turn. It's basically what it can be as long as you're playing with your teammate in mind. Next up, we have Gull and Cho. This is a passive, so essentially you both have to pick the representative hero. And then you both get this passive where whenever you play a golden minion, the other player will also get a triple reward. So this, I believe, was nerfed from the BlizzCon test servers. So seems like very good in terms of being able to get free triples or synergize or get extra triples is just very powerful and worth having both players invested in this ability. So seems strong, seems good. I'm down to try it, and there's probably some like really good combos you can do. Have someone ram, but I assume the player is getting the same triple reward, or is it like based on your tier? It's there's definitely going to be some abuse cases, I think, with this type of hero power. So yeah, seems strong to me. Next up, we have Flidinius Flop. Okay. So you choose a friendly minion instead of combo, you transform it into your teammate's highest tier minion. I feel like generally this is not the best hero power, and what might make this respectable is full mastery of what you're planning on doing at the beginning of the game. So if you know, hey, we're playing Beasts or we're playing Quillboars, and the Quillboar highest tier comp is very strong, then, and if you get a copy of it, or your team gets a copy of it, then you can really scale with that. Then maybe this might be playable. But my issue is that this just doesn't seem that reliable, and it doesn't do anything early, because your early game you're not going to have a higher tier marine that matters, and then usually late in the game, your hero power isn't as important as what you're doing like through your minions turn by turn. So by the time this really feels like it pays off, it's too late in the game for this to really matter. So also, I believe this used to be like power, and it changed to tier or something like that. So when it was power, that was pretty good, because if your opponent has like a 200 stat minion, you just get it. Highest tier, you can still do that, but it's a lot harder to force your highest tier to also be your highest power. So definitely feels inconsistent. And I feel like Duros is going to be a pretty high rolly, or pretty like much greater power than you're used to in singles. And singles is also pretty like high power. Like I feel like this takes too long, and it's not the type of hero power you're looking for. So I'm pretty low on this one in particular. So those are the 4 or 5, I guess, but depending on how you want to look at it, new heroes added to Duros. They all look pretty interesting, and some do look absolutely strong. So let's take a look at the spells. So we have 3 spells that we're revealing here. We have Recruitment Program. You get a random minion of your teammates, most common type, and then you pass it. So for 2 gold, you get a random minion of your teammates' most common type. So you don't really get to choose the gold, but then you pass it. So the way you want to be looking at this is a 1 gold, give your teammate a random minion, because they can always sell it. So 1 gold, give your teammate a random minion of their most common type. Absolutely great. This is like, to me, like almost an auto buy if you have the gold left over. Like, yeah, it's 1 gold. You give them as long as it makes sense. Like there might be some scenarios where they don't really need this random minion, or the type doesn't make sense for what they're trying to do. Then yeah, skip it. But I think if it makes sense to play Murlocs or anything where you want more types, yeah, for sure, give it to them. So seems very strong. Seems like something you're going to be picking up a lot if you have coordination with your teammate. So seems very good. Next up, we have Portal in a Bottle. So you pass a non-random golden minion. So essentially, this is Madame Goya's effect. This is what I was talking about. It's a Tyrant 3 spell, but still, pass a non-random golden minion. Seems good. Like late game, this is why I'm not super sold on Madame Goya. Is this effect good enough that you want it all the time when you can get it at will, when necessary? I'm not sure. I don't really think so. But once again, you are saving money, so maybe that's where the payoff comes from. Next up, we have Catch. So my initial reaction is this card looks crazy to me. Give your minions +3 attack, upgrades plus 3 every turn after this is passed. So essentially, you buy this for 2 gold, then you pay 1 gold to give it +3 attack, right? So you're paying 3 gold for give your minions +6. You're paying 4 gold for give your minions, and it's not just you paying gold, right? It's you and your opponent. You have 20 gold to spend. Late game, like that's a lot. So you spend like 5 gold on this. This is what? Give your minions +12 attack. All your minions. Like that's so much attack to just be willingly giving at will. So this card seems crazy to me. I wouldn't be surprised if this card gets nerfed. That's my interpretation. If you have any synergies, any divine shield, stuff like that, you could just like blow people up. So this one looks very strong. As long as you have some setup, even using it for the +3 attack is not bad, but you probably want +6. I feel like +6 is like where it's like, like I'm killing a lot of things with that. So yeah, seems really good to me. Wouldn't be surprised if it got changed. And those are the spells. Next up, we have the minions. So we'll be going from lowest tier to highest tier, and just my thoughts on them. So first up, we have Trusty Pup. So it's a 1/3. Whenever this takes damage, you get +1 attack permanently. This seems to be look at the new base strategy. So with this one, nice thing about this is that even if it dies, you still get the attack. So you trade into a 2/3, right? And then you trade again, and then you have a 3/3, like turn 1. Like this seems very good early game. If you want power early, essentially, right? If you want something that can win you fights, this seems good. So in that avenue, seems strong. Is it like broken? No, but for a 1-drop, very good. So not I'm okay with this card. Early game seems solid. Next up, we have Passenger. So the first time your team passes each turn, gain +2/+2. This also seems very good. So this card seems... Where this card really shines to me is when you both players start with this, right? So you have your first shot, both players have a Passenger. Like, okay, let's go, right? Then you both buy it, turn 2 or so. I mean, maybe turn 3 or so you start passing. You can really start scaling there. So I think this does have really good potential, especially if you both have it on 1. I think that's really where you're going to be very happy to see this. So seems strong. Next up, we have Generous Geomancer. So this is a death rattle. You and your teammate each gets a blood gem. So essentially a 2/1, gain 2 blood gems. You can pass blood gems and stuff, but that's like very expensive and not worth it to me. So still, I'm not as sold on this card. Blood gems aren't super premium, and the issue is that with death rattle cards, death rattles are a lot harder to guarantee, because let's say your opponent is much stronger than you and they just win their fights, right? One of the other teammates are also like the same level where they just have someone weak, someone strong, and you're able to your teammate's able to full clear. Then you don't get your death rattle procs. So you have to be careful if you are playing this. You have to be careful not to be too crazy strong that your opponent or whoever doesn't have this is too crazy strong that they can't trigger this. So you have to be a little bit careful, and I think that matters. So I just don't think death rattles are going to have as crazy value as you have in solos, just because you're not always going to the chance you get this is even lower than before. So seems good early, turn 2 or turn 3, right? You probably get the proc off, but later on, I just don't really think this is something you want to be adding into your collection or into your warband as the game progresses. Next up, we have Wanderer Cho. So 1 pass each turn is free. This seems pretty good. Essentially, you gain 1 gold a turn. 2 mana, 4/3, gain 1 gold a turn. Very strong. And passing has other buffs. So it's not you only gain 1 gold. It's you might just now start triggering your Passenger. You might start triggering some of the other dual cards that we'll talk about. So this just seems very good. It has a good stat line, and it opens up more synergies for your deck without really costing you too much. So this seems very strong if you are coordinating with your teammate, right? This, once again, you have to be coordinating with your teammate, but if you are, this seems very good. Next up, we have Friendly Saloon Keeper. Hey, your teammate gains a gold coin. Of course, I'm buying this. Of course. Free money for no reason. Yes. And gold coins are really nice since you can hold on to them until you need them. So, yeah, this just seems like an auto snap for me. Yeah, it's a 3/4 good stat line. Gives your teammate a gold coin that they could use later on when it makes sense. Very, very strong. Seems like you always want to get this. At least on turn 2 while you can. Next up, we have 1,000 Paper Drake. So, start of combat, you give your leftmost dragon +1/2 and Wind Fury. Sure. I mean, so essentially this is a 3/5, right? That's how you want to look at it. This is a 3/5 Wind Fury that has other synergies. 3/5 Wind Fury turn 2 is pretty good stat line. So you might buy this for tempo if you're really going tempo heavy, but doesn't really seem that crazy strong to have unless you are going dragon synergies. There's some crazy dragon synergies that we'll go into, but in terms of is this gonna win you the game? I don't really think so at the moment. So decent card, good tempo, but doesn't get you going that heavily in my opinion. Next up, we have the tier 3s, Plunder Pal. So at the start of your turn, you and your teammate each gain 1 gold. So this is a 3-cost card. Each of your teammates gain 1 gold at the start of your turn. Very good. Once again, I'm I'm a greed person, but I think that's where some of the highest level play comes in when you have extra gold, you use your resources effectively, and you're getting 2 gold. Like, it's not, you don't get 2 gold specifically, but you are getting 2 gold between the group. So a 3 cost every turn gain 2 gold. Like, I would snap by that. Obviously, it's a little bit more intricate, but seems very good to just have if you can. The downside is the 2/2, so you are going to be paying in health. Hopefully your opponent, like, this is the type of stuff where if you go 3-on-3, this is what you snap by. Things like that. So there's definitely some potential for this to be very good, and pirates are pretty iffy, but as long as there's, you know, your teammate can carry you or help you, this can do a lot of work. So I'm definitely down for this, and I think this could be a pretty good card for people that get it early. Later on, maybe not worth the stat cost, but early on, earlier you get this, the better you can utilize it. And you're getting 2, like, it's double the gold. It's for 2 gold. Like, I don't know. It seems very strong to me. Next up, we have Orchestra Conductor. So you give a minion +2/+2. You're not bound by any particular minion type, so that's pretty nice. And you improve your team's future Orchestra Conductor. So you play this, and then your teams get better. I assume it increases by +2/+2 every time, so it goes from 2 to 4 to 6 and stuff like that. I mean, if you can get multiple early, I think you can pick it up, and it's pretty flexible. If you get it on a cleave, I don't know if there's going to be that many cleaves, or a Divine Shield for sure. There's a lot of good Divine Shield synergies, so if you can find just a good target, this could definitely be something to work out of. People already play buff cards, and this is a buff card that scales your other buff cards, so it just seems like you're going to pick this up randomly, and then sometime in the mid game you have this +8/+8 randomly. You're just like, wow, that's insane. So this just seems like something you want to be picking up if both you and your teammates have like a conscious plan of like, oh, we are picking up conductors. That feels like something I would tell Shady, you know, like, we are picking up conductors, Mr. Friend. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, fine. And then like late game, it's just like +20/+20 for no reason. Like, yeah, I'm down. So seems good. This one does feel like you have to test, because what I don't know is how slow is this compared to what are the other options in the game, right? Based on the archetypes, is this just too slow? Am I spending too much gold for, you know, plus random buffs that don't matter when people have these comps that scale 50/50 per turn, right? And that is what I don't know. Looking at it without that full context, it looks good to me. However, in a day or two, if with practice, this might just be too slow. So that's the fear there, but it does look interesting, and I'll definitely try it at least, and then go from there. So next up, we have the Puddle Prancer. Ooh. So this is, after this is passed, 3 cost, 3/3, it gains +3/+3. So this seems like the type of card you want to get with some other synergies, some of the other passing synergies. You buy this, you pass this, and then you have a, 4 cost, 6/6. Not that great, but you pass it again. 5 cost, 9/9. Maybe we're talking. The one downside I have of this is if you really want to pass it a lot, you have to hold it in your hand, right? So it's not really something you want to like buy, pass, play, right? If you really want to abuse it, you want to like buy, pass, play, So, or buy, hold, and then pass, play. So that's the real issue. It might take a while, but there are some spells that let you pick up something from the shop and pass it at the same time, right? Madame Goya effects. So this is like a perfect Madame Goya card. It's just a 3/6. It's just a 2 cost 6/6. So there's definitely going to be some uses for this, but I could also see it being a little bit clunky if you don't have good synergies, good spells anyway to really feel like you're getting rewarded for passing. So not super sold on it, but I can see where it feels strong. And even like passing it like 4 times, you have like a 15 power card. Like, that's going to do some work. So seems reasonable. And then golden versions are also crazy. Next up, we have the Dolting Dracor, something like that. Anyways, it is a 3 cost, 4/3. At the end of your turn, you give your teammates minions +1 attack. So once again, you're buffing your teammate. You're not buffing yourself, but you are giving 1 attack for free permanently at the end of the game. Like, that's not bad. Not the end of the game, end of the turn. That's not bad. So this might be something you just buy randomly. You do have to communicate with your teammate. Like, do you need attack? Like, they might just be like, no, I don't know. I've already catched +12 attack. I don't need 1 more attack. So that's where, this might not matter because people are just scaling with catch. Like, you're like, what's the point of this? I'm just going to scale with catch instead of this, right? And I think that's probably what is likely to happen. People just scale with catch and not this. But maybe in some dragon synergies, this might actually be very useful. So there's definitely some maybe use cases, but I do think like catch to me looks very good that you don't care about this. So that's my current thoughts there. Next up, we have Grave Narrator. So this is Avenge 3. Your teammate gives a random minion of their most common type. What does this card remind me of, right? It reminds me of that one card that does that one thing, the 3/5, Avenge 3, you gain a random battle cry, that card, right? 4 cost, 4 tier 4. Same thing, except now you're just buffing your opponent, your teammate instead. I think if you build around this is going to be good. It's their most common type. So for me, this feels like it triples much easier than a lot of the other cards of this type, where it's like, okay, I'm only getting elementals, I'm only getting murlocs, I'm only maybe not playing murlocs that early in the game, but I'm only getting mechs, right? Like, I feel like you're going to be tripling much easier as long as you build around this. So if you can set this up for your opponent and you don't die, right? Like, I think this is pretty good. Now, once again, Avenge and Death Rattle are iffy to me because half of the games your teammate will start. All right. And if your teammate is strong, which they should be, since you are giving them tons of resources, there are chances where they just full clear and you get nothing. So that's like my issue of Death Rattle Avenge stuff. It might just not be consistent because sometimes your opponent will start and your teammate will start and they'll just wipe the board. And you're just like, yeah, you should wipe the board because I gave you like 8 gold, over the course of like 3 turns. So that's my fear, where this might not be as powerful or prominent as you might expect, just because there's always that case of like, maybe my teammate just full clears, which I think is very doable. Next up, we have Storm Splitter. So once per turn, after you pass a tavern spell, you get a new copy of it. Once again, this is going to depend on how you are using your tavern spells, what you're buying, and what makes sense. If you are using this just to buy heavy costed tavern spells that don't really fit your teammate, then what's the point, right? Like, you are just paying a gold to give your teammate something you're not using. Now, I do think there's a good amount of tavern spells that are useful for both players, like spells that pass, spells that buff, stuff like that, like catch, right? You pass a catch, you get another catch, like, like, woo, I mean, I'm just saying, right? That kind of stuff seems strong. So I do think it's a Tavern 4 is like early enough that I think it's pretty good, but once again, you will have to set up and make sure you're communicating with your opponent here or your teammate here. Next up, we have Prize Promo Drake. To me, this card looks crazy. I don't know about you guys, but it gives your other dragons +3/+3. This isn't like your left and right. This is not your left and right. This is not your kid promo Drake. This is big boy Drakes now. We're giving all of our other dragons +3/+3 starter combat. Like, that's a lot of free stats for dragons. So at least early game, right? And I assume Targosa's in here, right? So that's just a lot of stats to just give out like this, So I'm a little bit scared about this card. Might be very good for dragons, and maybe dragons are like the generic like early game starter where you can just like you find some prize promos and you're good to go. It's tier 4 still, right? So it's you can get this early and you just have huge buffs. So definitely seems pretty good. I'm a little bit worried about this card. We'll see how strong it ends up being, but it looks like one of the strongest cards they're adding so far for duos that I've seen. So yeah. Next up, we have Mirror Monster. So first off, this is Amalgam. Second of all, it's almost guaranteed to be a problem card. I can tell you that much. When you buy or discover this, you get an extra copy and pass it. Like, yeah, buy every single copy of this you see. Like, it's free real estate. Like, I don't see how you don't do this. And you just give your opponent free triples. This just seems, I don't know why they always do this with Amalgadons. They just make them broken, like, every time. I don't get it. And they seem to keep up on their trend. So, yeah. Pick this up when you see it. Just seems very strong. Next up, we have Magnanimous. So this is a 4-cost 5/2 Death Rattle. Summon a copy of a minion from your teammate's warband, and you set its health to 1. So doesn't feel like you control it. So I don't know. I'm not super sold on this. I mean, I guess you just play it and you hope you get like some good Death Rattle or good Divine shit or something like that. But I'm not really super sold on it. Maybe it's good. I can definitely see in the right decks it's good. But since you don't get to control what you're summoning, that makes it a little bit more iffy to me. But I think if your opponent's playing good Death Rattle comp, this is strong, right? So as long as your opponent has like a good Death Rattle, like that Death Rattle that summons like a gigantic minion based on how many beasts you've killed, like that might be something you want to be adding. Things like that, maybe Deflecto. Deflecto is also like very good. So there's definitely going to be some cases where it's good, but this feels very comp specific and not something you're going to be adding randomly to every deck. I guess like if your opponent or your teammate's playing full scam, like there you go. Like there's definitely some reasons I can see it, but this to me feels like I have to test it for me to really have an opinion. My opinion is like kind of low. Next up, we have Manari Messenger. So this is another 4-cost. A lot of 4-costs being added. I think there's like 6 4-costs being added here, which is like significantly more than any of the other tiers. So battle cries, minions in your team's taverns have +2/+1 this game. So your team's tavern. So it's not just your tavern, it's your whole team. Like, I love this. Yeah, buff my tavern, buff my team's tavern. Just giving your team free stuff, your teammate free stuff sounds so fun. So definitely want to be using this. Question is it good? Right? I just think like you're probably just gonna buy it when you can. Like it just buffs all your team. Like it buffs your tavern, your team's tavern. Like you're getting +4/+2. Like holistically, like it just seems good. If you are playing that type of Surgy, Demon Surgy makes sense. So seems fun. I'm gonna try it. I'll tell you later if it's good or bad. But yeah, it definitely seems like something to try. Next up, we have Feisty Freshwater. So this is a Death Rattle. So that kind of lowers it for me. If it was like maybe like a Battle Cry, but I guess Death Rattle means you can trigger it every turn. So that could be pretty valuable in terms of like you're gaining technically 4 gold if this procs, right? You and your teammate each gain 2 refreshes, cost 0. Like that's 4 gold if this triggers. So this just seems like something you want to buy when you can. Play it down, see if it triggers. Gaining 4 gold or taunt this sucker, right? Like 4 gold between 2 people is like meaningful, very meaningful. So seems strong. I'm down to try it. It's better in the elemental comps for sure. Maybe demon comps as well, things like that. But yeah, seems like a solid addition for rerolls. Millhouse always buys this for sure. Like they are jamming. But yeah. And then next up on our tier 5 minions, we have Well Wisher. So this is a spellcraft. You pass a different non-golden minion. So once again, this is a Goya, right? So this kind of makes sense. This is another reason why I'm not like super big on Goya. There's just other ways of doing what Goya does. This one does cost significant. I mean, it doesn't cost. It's like the same cost. You just have to have it on your board. So seems good. The golden version doesn't change, which is a little bit sad, but I get it. Like it's already good enough spellcraft. So yeah, if you like passing, this can definitely be one way to do that. And you can pass things on your warband, which is like sometimes hard. Like that's like the main use case, to pass something on your warband, where before you couldn't really do that. It does make me think, like, are there going to be comps where you get things back in your hand? And I guess this does make that Murloc a lot easier to play, where you play that Murloc and then you just pass it, as long as it's not golden, right? And it's back to your opponent's hand, and you can pass it back, things like that. So there's definitely some use cases to this, and it does make that Murloc seem a little bit better. Though it is pretty late in the game when you start picking this up, so maybe it's not relevant unless you're playing Goya or something like that. Yeah. And then next up, we have support system. So this one feels, as long as your opponent, like, one person in your team is picking this up every time. And I guess you're always picking it up and passing it if you are the guy, right? So at the end of your turn, you give a minion your teammate's warband Divine Shield. Like, everyone's getting Divine Shield, baby, when this happens. So once again, you have to be very careful with positioning in the late game, assuming that your opponents are going to have Divine Shield minions. So seems pretty crazy to me, just the ability to give your whole board Divine Shield at will, as long as you have it this. Like, you're going to be picking this up. I feel like, why wouldn't you? So just feels like, yeah, just be aware of this. Divine Shield's late game every time. So don't put your biggest minion with no bumper. Don't do that in the late game. Doesn't make sense. So definitely pick this up. Seems crazy. And then last but not least, there's no 6s for some reason that I saw, but we do have 7s, and it's not easy to get 7s, so this isn't something I would worry too much about. But Sandy is coming. This transforms into a copy of your teammate's highest health minion. Start of combat is a little bit scary because there are some ways to kill it before it transforms if they win the flip, but generally you're going to be getting an insanely valuable team opponent card from your teammate, because if it's not you with this crazy minion, you pass it, right? You pass it to your teammate and let them copy your minion. So it just seems very strong. So hard to get, so I'm not too worried about it, but it is something to keep in mind if tier 7 somehow is in the game. Maybe you're playing that hero that does give you that. So overall, that is all of the new duo cards. What are your favorites? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, and hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll see if we'll do more of this, but take care of yourselves and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to play the outro that I do for my other channel just because I like it. But yeah, maybe I'll change it some way.
Educatedcollins snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be improving. How you do